All right, good morning. We are in Sefer Ein Gimel, Sefer Torah, Sif Dalid. Nizdamna loy teva bas eser oisius. Someone has to write a word, a 10-letter word, or pachos or yoser, around there. V'lo nishar me'ashita lichta v'skula. And there's not enough space on the shelf to write everything. B'sach hadaf, within the column. Im yachol lichtoiv chetzia b'soch hadaf, chetzia chutz hadaf, koisef. If he can write half of it within the column and half of it out, should write it. V'im lav v'niyach ha'makom panoi v'maskim v'tchias l'shita. He should just leave it and start from the Reishaim Bezdal. Oh, I'm sorry. Reishaim Bezdal. Oh, sorry. Okay. No, sorry, we'll go back a minute. Reishaim Bezdal. Sheyigmar es Torah. And Sarach sheyigmar be'emtza shita shebesof hadaf. When you finish writing the Sefer Torah, you have to finish in the middle of the line in the middle of a column. Meaning leave it like a psucha. The point is, it should be like a psucha. The one pshat I saw is because it's ki'ilu. Torah is always open to continue learning. There's always a continuation. It ends at the end of the line. At the end of the line, okay, that's it. But the psucha means keep on going. That's what Be'er says it, I think. Nisha min hadaf shiti in harbe. If there's a lot of lines left in the daf, mekatzer v'oila. Oisias aruchois v'mata lamala ishetachzik teva achas dal v'heshitim. Then you should go ahead and make the letters larger, this, whatever, in order to get it to the end, to the end in the middle, to get it to the right spot. You make slightly larger letter, different things, whatever. The maschil v'tchilas hashita shebesof hadaf. And then you start from the beginning of the line at the end of the column. But you don't finish the line. And you have to work out that the last words of the Torah, end in the middle of the line, and therefore it's like a psucha. And therefore, at the end of the column, and that's how you finish the Torah. Yesh omrim that it's a machlokes whether it's ma'akiv or not. Pashas is ma'akiv. There are those who say that you would even have to take a. The Be'er Sheva says that the Pischachur brings the Be'er Sheva says it's a puzzle Sefer Torah. You have to take out another one. The others are cholik, so the Fi'inyan.
So the last line has to start with La'ene?
No, finish. It should stop in the middle. Stop. Yisrael Lamed should stop in the middle of the line. So they have to. Yeah, you have to cheshbon these things out. That's what it means.
Very big letters at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean.
At the end, it could be very big.
Right. Okay. The Lamaisa.
And also, how far down does it have to be before you start making large words?
It's the Fi'inyan. I don't know. I guess if you person ended up like that, I guess so. You play around. Listen, nowadays they have a tikkun that they follow. Okay, but if someone would just be writing, he see where he's coming, he has to plan ahead. I better make this longer. Yeah, he has to plan ahead. Reisha and Gimel. Aleph, Shir Hagilion Lamata Dalal Etzbos. The shear of the margins of the shear of the margin of the Sefer Torah. The bottom is Dalal Etzbos is four etzbos, like about 6 centimeters, something around there. Begoldel, all etzbos begoldel, thumb, whatever. Well, Lamala Gimel, and on top it's 3. The reason why it's more on the bottom is because in case Toifus said to look at it, something like that. It's great tfisa that they can pull on it. So then you need a little bit more. The top no one really touches usually. That's what touches Sefer Torah anyway. But someone who's being magia, someone whatever it is. So it won't ruin Sefer Torah if someone would touch the bottom. Vein kol daf v'daf shnaim. And between each column, you need two etzbos. Therefore, you have to leave at the beginning of each piece of cloth. You have to leave at least an etzba, and the amount that you need to sew it together. It will be between each column. Even between the sewn columns, there's going to end up being two etzbos. The tefira is after it's sewn. There's you have the place where it's sewn. You have the place where it's sewn, and then it has an etzba on either side of it.
So the fold goes in the z direction, goes in another dimension.
Yeah, I mean, or the tefillas are on it, or the tefillah. You don't include the makom of tefillas.
Yeah, so you'll have two etzbos and
yeah, exactly.
So the gap will be slightly wider.
It's slightly wider. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not a lot. Yeah, it's just it's not very much. Uvein shita, the shita kamala roich of shita. Between each line should be the height of a line. Uvein kol chumash dal shitim. Between every chumash, you need 4 lines pnuyos without a blank line, 4 blank lines. Below ksav. V'yaskel chumash mitchilas shita chamishis, and you start writing the next chumash from the 5th line. And you have to leave in the Sefer Torah. You have to leave makom on the cloth in order to attach it to the Atzei in order to roll it. It's both, and besides the makom to roll it, you start. I guess whatever it needs. You need 2 etzbos from the Atzei. When you start Bereshis, you have 2 etzbos from the galil, from the roll. Shishar ben Amar Ladaf, right? And the other 2 is start that goes from the Amba, from the Atzei to the first column.
We learned that the first Yoreh and the last Yoreh had only 3 columns instead of 4. So the 1 column ends up being this.
Right. You can, However, again, that's the way they do it. Yeah, that's what they do it today. Yeah, they do 3 and 4, whatever. But that's being kind. This, a few nakudas here, just to add into the last point that if the thing starts deteriorating, you're allowed to add another. According to Pesach, you're allowed to add another Yoreh sewn on in order to sew on a little extra cloth in order to attach it to the Atzei if it's getting messed up. When it comes to a smaller Sefer Torah, there's a whole discussion. You have the mini Sefer Torah. So if you did 3 and 4, margins of 3 and 4, you're going to end up, with a ksav, like it's going to take most. How are you going to do that? So you've seen tons of people done like mini Sefer Torah. That was a bit of a machlokes. Listen, it's not the Gimel and Dal is not ma'akev mamish. So therefore, they'd say that some say that I think there's some shittas. I think you still do 3 and 4, and it ends up being a really teeny ksav. Some say no, you just do you have to ratio it, accordingly with the smaller Sefer Torah. But l'chachila any Sefer Torah should be that this is the margins of any of the Sefer Torah.
So 4 lines it goes in bottom or 5?
4, and then you start at the 5th.
So that means you're actually skipping 2 lines. After every line, you have a blank line. So it's kilo, you didn't write 2 lines.
Right. Okay. Fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But
yeah.
Fine. Right. So Bays. Lo yimar aksav if they revach shalamata ulamala. You shouldn't you shouldn't make the letters smaller or bigger in the on that top line or the bottom line, not because of to create the margin on top. Revach shabein parsha the parsha, and not in order shouldn't squish them or not in order to make the revach between. I'm sure that parshas, parsha stumas and all these things should work out. This is all the chachila that it should be written. If you start, it should be written nicely. Again, the Aruch Shulchan says there are all these dinim. There's a lot of these dinim and whatever. The main thing and the main noy of a Sefer Torah is everything looks uniform. Everything. The letters aren't bigger, smaller. Lines aren't bigger and smaller. The columns are straight. That's noy Sefer Torah. You start playing around with lines. You squish this line to make this line, make all these cheshbona, whatever, and in the end it looks meshugana because you want to be machman in every single, this and this thing and that thing, and it looks weird. So that's also not noy. One other machlekes over here about the daled and gimel etzbos is where do you measure the margin from? Do you measure the margin from, like, let's say there's a lamed, from the lamed, from the sirtut, or from the sirtut, and there's one more, or from the, I think not from the top lamed, but from like the letter above it. That's slightly different shear. Like if you had you go from the letter, not from the sirtut, which is slightly longer. Yeah. The lamed, the bar of the lamed is by the sirtut, and then or say at the bottom, right? The kuf goes down or whatever. Where do you measure it? So there's three different shitas. I think that by row, I think that you don't go from the edge of the longer letters. You go from the either the sirtut or the letter itself. That's mashu of not nafkamina, but al kapanim, that's where they measure the margins from. Gimel nizdamna lo teva bas chamisha oisios. If you have a word which is 5 letters long, lo yichto shtayim esuchadaf. You don't write 2 in the middle of the column. Gimel chutzadaf and 3 letters sticking out. Like I used to write, essays in high school. So like, you couldn't finish the word, you just stuck it out here, stuck it out there, whatever. So you shouldn't write, if you have 5 letters, you shouldn't write 2 in the column and 3 outside. Elokoisiv gimel b'sochadaf. If you can, you write 3 in the daf. B'shtayim chutzadaf and 2, and you can do 2 letters outside, sticking out of the column. And if there isn't space to write 3, leave it blank. You don't have to go ahead and write, and extend the letters. You can extend. You don't have to extend them so they cover the end of the daf. We're not going to think if it's less than I think it's 9 OCOs. We're not going to think it's a psucha. So if you leave if it's 3, 4, whatever it is, then it doesn't look like a psucha. You don't have to fill it to the end of the line. V'teva, and also there are only so many letters which can be stretched. There's like the aleph, beis, like gimel, all the short tops, vav, those can't be stretched because it changes the surah of those. But chaf, beis, the whole thing. Lamed, I think lamed. I'm not sure about lamed. I see the list. But whatever. There's the ones where the roofs are longer can be stretched out because then it doesn't look, unless it's like, I don't know, unless you make it like it's a certain point. This is more in Hilchos Tefillin. It looks weird. But upon him, you don't have to do it in this case. V'teva bas gimel osios yachal lichtov imena shtayim chutz daf. Let's say you have a 3-letter word. You can write shtayim chutz daf v'shemiyuta b'fnim. The point is not. The point is not that you should. It is not with should the rove is in the line or not. The question is how much should be outside the line. It's not a question of rov amir. They're just saying there shouldn't be more than 2 outside the line. Aval im aimba el shtei oisios. If there's only 2 oisios in the word, lo yichtavena chutz daf. Then you can't write a whole word outside the daf, even if it's only 2. Meaning. So there's two things here. One is that a word has to be within the daf. Even if it's if it's it could if it's more than 3 letters, rov should be in the daf because you shouldn't have more than 2 letters outside. If it's a 3-letter word, so then you could have 1 and then 2. Hagav even if the 2 is from a very long word. And they are 2 letters of themselves a word. Let's say it ends with plishtim and ends with yud mem, right? So yud mem is also yam, right? So even though those 2 letters, what you would think is maybe it's a separate word by itself, you should not write those 2 words those 2 letters on the gillion, even if it's out of a very long word. But since those 2 letters look like they're their own word, b'fnei atzmon. Like I said, you had the word plishtim, so you have to put out the 2 yud and the mem at the end sticking out. But that's the word yam, so you shouldn't do that because because it looks like a whole word out. The Shach discusses about what about if you have the word s or a 2-letter word, and so can you write 1 letter on the line and 1 letter sticking out? Is that okay? He makes a machlokes with that. He seems to be nice, I think. It's a bit of a machlokes. He seems to be nice. I think that you shouldn't. The clearly shouldn't do that because the issue is that even though it's only 1 letter, but you don't really have it confuses things here. He says, he brings them up like this. He brings the levush and the, Mashra came right. He says it's not. He said you don't have to worry about it. Correct. He brings the machlokes, but you don't have to worry about it. That the Sefer can write 1 and 1. Dalid. Nizdaman lo teva bas eser oisios opachos oyoisa. Let's say he has a 10-letter word or less or more. He can't finish writing it. If he can write half of it in the middle of the daf. The issue is that he ended up with a space. It's going to look like a psucha. So what do you do? So if you can write half of it in the daf, and even still, you have another 5 letters outside the daf, even that's really not a chachila, but otherwise it's gonna look like a psucha, so you can have other problems.
A space and 5 letters. He said you only have room to put in 5.
Oh, you want to say there's space for 5, 6? Oh yeah, whatever. Yeah. However, the cheshbon is here. The issue is it might look like a psucha because it's a larger word. Okay. Again, with letters sometimes you can make them smaller, switch them together, different things, whatever.
It's essentially saying that you'll have a space of 6 letters.
Yeah. Okay. It says that even though, it's not going to be 9 letters. As long as it's not 9 letters, it could be even 5, 6 letters. That you can still leave it blank and start from the next line. And it said, and then the Shach explains. He says, the Shach says the pshat over here is that this goes like the sheet of as long as there's no word outside the daf. It's you can write more than gimel osios as long as it's not rova teva, rova the word outside the daf. He himself says that the feeling is that the ikar lahachrik harosh. that it's only if it's up to 4 letters you can write it outside the daf, and he says therefore that you should be machmir, and if it's more than 4 letters you shouldn't write chetzi outside the daf. Hey, kol elo dvarim einam elo lemitzvah min hamuvchar im shina kosher. All these things with the letters, they're all mitzvah min hamuvchar. But if it had to be changed, then it'd still be kosher. It's fine. Meaning all these things that we taught, hidur, a noise, a keleb, and vehu, the Sefer Torah should look nice. Again, if you have the Sefer Torah with some letters sticking out here and they have whatever, people are going to spend less on it. It's not so nice, And the ways of the tikkun, the Poskim say that there were some tikkunim which were set up in Amsterdam, different places in time of the Achronim, that the Sefer worked for years, working out exactly how to fit everything in according to all the cheshbonos and everything like that. So everything looks nice. Okay.